Hello, welcome to the show. My name is Ogumadit. Thank you for joining us today. This week we will discuss a topic that is yet to come to an end, African gang, which later shifted to South Sudanese gang. The focus on the so-called African gang crime started in March 2016 when violence broke out at a Mumba festival in Melbourne. A few weeks after that, Channel 7 Current Affair made a story with a young man who claimed to be part of a group gang called Apex Gang. So with me, I have Makar Mayak, who is a lawyer, and Galid Wolbol, who is an economics student and also a founder of a non-profit organization that supplies medical equipment to South Sudan. This organization is called MSA, so you can find it on social media. Thank you very much, both of you, for coming. Now, I'll start with you, Makar. Now, you've been doing a lot of interviews lately, obviously, and the word gang, do you think that this word has been used appropriately for to describe these young men? What do you think?
I think there's a common usage to the word gang. Commonly, it's used to describe any behavior that is unacceptable. That's the loose way in which it's used by commonly in the community. But there's the legal definition to the word gang. It has to do with a group that is organized, that has hierarchy, that has a common purpose, that engages in specific behavior and with the specific intention to achieve certain outcomes. So when it comes to the way it's being used in the media at the moment, it's not necessarily correct, but I think they are applying the common usage where young people are engaged in unacceptable behavior.
Now, I will also ask you, Galit, since you are a youth as well, and you engage a lot with other brothers and sisters out there, do you feel discriminated? Do you feel like when you go out, you are being racially profiled because of what's going on in the media at the moment?
There is a discrimination, and it is quite effective to the young people.
And how is that affecting young people?
Job-wise, I would say, it's very hard for us to get jobs. Because you study, you want to be a lawyer or a doctor. It's going to it's going to be hard. And I think Makir would also agree. It's going to be really hard for you to get these kind of jobs. And that's one way of looking at it.
I think the argument I've always tried to advance is where young people are organized and they are engaged in this behavior where they, for instance, they go and commit burglaries, and that behavior is consistent. They have a consistent group that they do have organized meetings and all that sort of a thing. I'm fine. I think I'm fine with that. The problem, where it becomes problematic, is that most of our young people, as has been described earlier, most of these are cousins, friends, who happen to associate together most of the times, and their behavior tends to happen when they've either consumed alcohol, or they've gone to parties, or they've more ordinarily engaging in some unruly behavior. I just don't think there's the organized entity to their behavior. It's not organized. It's very loose. It's all over the place, and that's the sort of argument I tend to advance. Needless to say, this is a criminal behavior. Okay, criminal behavior is punishable by law. Where if you're a young person that is below the age of 18, you get brought before the youth, the criminal justice system. If you're 18 and over, you face the adult court, criminal justice system. This is the way it works.
Yeah, and even saying that, there was just an incident that just happened recently
Yeah.
where young South Sudanese males were walking in a train station and they got attacked by the Caucasian young male.
Yeah.
And the story went out. You can see, obviously, they have weapons, and young Sudanese boy were just standing, in shock, really,
Exactly.
because if they act according to whatever behavior
That's been let
that
out,
is
yeah.
the perpetrator is
Yeah.
giving them, then they obviously get blamed easily.
Yeah.
We are actually doing a lot of things that people don't know that we are trying our best.
Over the past few months, Councillor Dr. Santino Deng has been running parenting workshops for South Sudanese families. These parents are in despair at how their community is being portrayed, and they want tips on how to keep their kids out of trouble.
Most of the things that you used to know are no longer there. A lot of parents are very depressed, stressed, and angry, sometimes toward their own children as well, for some of the issues that young people are doing. They come from a culture where parenting was done differently. Now in Australia, you cannot do it maybe the way they used to do it. مثلا تنبيه وقتين ميد أكيد لكن تهني نجلب ميد بنتات ما نوجه نيان وين كن.
Many South Sudanese families here are female-headed households. Widows with children were often prioritised for refugee resettlement.
Wun Kenya ci wun meto aw ci dong Africa
Yeah,
belong lui tane ci connection
yeah. Lacking male role model in the family is a major contributing factor. Back home, for instance, even if you don't have the husband in the house, uncle would be there, other family, other relatives. But in Australia, you get confined in your own house. You don't have much support around. There is what we call role reversal within the family, where children start to speak a very good language and they understand the system. They become more powerful because they understand the language and the culture. So these changes can really impact on parents. They feel like they don't have power, they don't have much control.
Lazim na respect. Siran dokwir. Yimin mit kwa na jam fuck. Come on, man. Do you know that? You clear Peter yen kana?
I think, look, let's put things into perspective a little bit, because we've got to. There are so many layers to this. Firstly, we do accept as a community we have some disengaged young people, and this is what I call them, because I think the young people who really want to engage in criminal behavior are really few in our community, but there are certainly ones that get dragged by as a result of friendships or their cousins and so forth, and they end up before the criminal justice system. So such things are there. Quite clearly as well, the statistics, young people from our community have really
Low percentage.
is
it?
It's alarming, because when you look at motor vehicle theft, the latest statistics for September 2018, that is, they do a year-on-year basis, to September 2017 to September 2018. There were about close to 200 or 205 motor vehicle theft. As a small community, that's a very alarming statistic. For aggravated burglaries, so aggravated burglaries are ones that are committed when somebody is likely to be inside the house. So and as a result, there is likely going to be it's called constructive harm, that somebody, even without intention, may be harmed because you've broken into their house.
Yeah.
And our young people are engaged to about 196 for the year on end for last year,
Yeah.
and that's a very alarming statistic. For a small community, that's huge. You know, we're
Yeah,
a small community, that's huge.
Just to jump in a little
mm.
there, they say that the population for South Sudan is about 9,000 in Victoria, so there's like 0.1%.
It's probably
So-
more, a lot more than that. But even that, the way statistics work, the statistics are compared. You take the population of say for instance 205 motor vehicle theft cases, and then you divide that, compare that against the population, say for instance, you know, our communities, you know, because only we in Wynnum Council, it's more than 5,000, so it can't be 9 in
Okay.
Victoria.
Well,
So
yeah.
it's a lot more, but as yet compared to statistics, where you get 20,000, then you get 205 motor
Definitely.
vehicle theft. So you get a high percentage of criminal behavior. So it becomes really alarming. But when you ask the question whether parents should be blamed, I think as a community we should take responsibility. I think we can put it in a way
And
that
what
we
are
say we
those
take
responsibilities?
responsibility.
What sort of responsibilities? In what
Firstly is acknowledging that we are in a position of disadvantage. Our young people are in a position of disadvantage because one, there are so many households that are single parent households, and the consequence of that is there will be a huge economic disadvantage where mothers will struggle to cater for their children and all that. We also know we cater for our families back home a lot, where even these single parent households, they tend to, the few resources they've got are scattered across these responsibilities. And then we've got all the, of course you will agree, the
Yeah.
dysfunction in the community where there's no single leadership, where so that to fill the void where it's left, where there's no, for the single parent home, there's no community leadership to fill the void.
And I think,
there.
yeah, that's definitely
So I think we
another-
can take responsibility from there, and I think you know, when we take responsibility as a community and say we own our problems, that I think, you know, people will respect us, and people do respect us because that's why our issues are discussed within the mainstream media, within the mainstream
Yeah.
discourses. It's because we hold a certain position in the society here.
Well, I think, you know, I'll go back to Galit as well, and I think you can also have an opinion in this, because I do have a very strong opinion in this section. Now, when stories get out of there, and obviously social media is very big right now, and you know, you obviously get really upset by the comments that people make.
Yeah.
But when I walk on the street, I rarely find anybody who comes straight to me and say that you should go back to your country or whatever. But you know, in social media, online, people behave differently. And I want to know, as a youth and as a young guy, and both of you, how do you know, what's your understanding? How does it make you feel, really, you know, with all those comments that people make about South Sudanese, actually?
Yeah, well, firstly, I think one of the reasons, you know, you never have someone approach you in public and, you know, admittedly say they don't want you in this country. Most people are too afraid to show, you know, the honest feeling, you know. People are afraid to be racist, you know, in front of you, or to be called racist, so they rather do all that behind closed doors. Now, coming back to how effective, you know, everything that you read on social media, you know, how a person can take that. For me personally, I don't really pay too much attention to that.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not going to let words bring me down.
Yeah.
That's how I look at it. So people can talk. You know, I can go as well, and you know, if I want to say something, I just write it down. But their opinions are just going to be their opinions. They're not going to bring me down.
Good. Well,
Yeah.
that's very good, because I have different opinions. I actually don't read, because if I read, I know that I'll probably sit there and reply to all of them. So I avoid them in general. But should our community, or should we say South Sudanese, be worried about living in this country? What is your
look? I think I don't want to be an alarmist, but I think what we need to do is, the more we are on guard, the more we are on our toes, thinking about the future of our children, the better the future our children will shape out to be better. In other words, we cannot rest on our heels and say it's going to be all good. I think we should be concerned. We should be on guard at how the future, how we can shape the future of our children. Today we've got doctors, we've got lawyers, and all that. It's a small number. It's increasing. It's getting better. The economic well-being of the community is not that great. But we also want to make sure once we have our children, we want them to be better. We want them to be more independent. We want them to be more economically prosperous.
Yes.
But it can only happen if we are on guard. We try to build wealth. We try to make our children a lot more educated. We want to educate our children to be more open-minded and so forth. So I think it's a good. It's not a bad thing to be concerned. Worried, not so much, because I think in the end of the day, we live in a country that is governed by a rule of law.
Yeah.
And that's why if we draw back to the prevalence of nasty comments online, it reflects the rule of law. Someone can say something, as long as they don't physically attack you, it's fine.
Yeah.
So,
well,
and that's why
to some extent,
yes.
yes.
So I mean, it's fine as the law is concerned. I mean, it's trolling and all that sort of a thing. Quite offensive, but it's not really.
Not much
really
you can
illegal,
do.
So that's why that's why you see that disparity. You see so much hate online, but in real life, people try to draw back because you will be caught by the rule of law. So in other words, we shouldn't be worried, but I think we should remain concerned. We should remain vigilant. We should remain being progressive about the future of us and our children. Whether this is long term, I think it's a good thing.
Yeah. Well, I think we'll just take a quick break and then we'll come back and discuss more. See you shortly. So welcome back from our little break. I have two very special guests, and we are talking about African gang and how this is affecting South Sudanese in Australia. And so we'll just go back to where we were. We'll pick it up from there. Now, another question is that if the early intervention is really important to these young people, or some other people claim that they're not young. So these youth that are committing crimes, is early intervention really important? And if so, what are those steps that people should take?
Early intervention, as far as the young people that are already before the criminal justice system is concerned, is extremely important because one, what that means is young people who have already been exposed to the criminal justice system, they have a criminal history, are likely going to find it difficult to have jobs. But if we say, for instance, at the first offense, or the first time a young person has been incarcerated, we provide for them opportunities to wean them off, to get them off criminal behavior, or to separate them from the criminal justice system. That's extremely important. How we do it, it depends in the end of the day on the preparedness of that young person to
take the action.
To accept, because it tends to be, by the time there's an intervention, they are adults, the age of 18 and over. How you want to engage them depends on how they are prepared to accept the opportunities that are being provided. I think we can try from the parents level to the community level, and then working together within, and I particularly emphasize on the service providers within the community and from the community, working in concert with the service providers from the wider community, making sure that when these young people are in prison, they have access to education, a lot of support. There's a early engagement with the community. The community leadership is regularly meeting with them to talk to them about what we've been saying, out there, that we did want you to be here, but now that you're here, it's not all lost. You will have education here. You will have job training opportunities here. Whatever you were lacking, whatever drove you to get into this behavior before, is now we now understand. But it's the opportunities are available for you.
Gondit, not that you obviously you have a great upbringing outside. Like, how did you keep yourself away from trouble?
Well, firstly, I think I kind of feel like I was a different generation. When I was, I do feel that, and I think a lot of people that I grew up with are also, doing quite well in life. But yes, it has to do with how you're raised, but also the kind of person you are. As long as you know what you want to do in life, it's very hard for you to be, involved in this kind of thing that are happening. So mostly, I believe it's a characteristic of a person, not so much of how you're brought up, because you can be brought up in a strict household, but also be involved in criminal activities. So I always feel like it's as long as you are well aware of where you are and where you want to be in life, things are going to be
good.
Yeah, different.
Now we'll come to our last question, and I think this one is very controversial, and I think the government is doing, I'm not sure if it has been passed already, about deportation. Do you think it's okay that the government is trying to take this path that any child or any young South Sudanese who commit crime will be deported back to South Sudan?
I think I need to correct something. The Australian citizenship law that came into being targets mainly those who are not Australian citizens, do not have citizenship. So your permanent residency is revoked that is if you are not a citizen.
But I thought that they also revoked the citizenship, because
the citizenship cannot be revoked. It can only be revoked on certain criminal behavior, which never happens in our community. That is terrorism and all that sort of thing, and fighting for foreign countries. If you go to South Sudan and you engage in rebellion, your citizenship can be revoked. But for permanent residents, the majority of the children who are in detention, the permanent residency got cancelled, the visas got cancelled because they're not citizens. So I haven't come across one that is a citizen.
Just saying that, do you think it's fair in a moral perspective that you obviously got the opportunity to be here? I mean, not that it's okay that they are committing these crimes, but at a certain level, do you think that this is correct? That obviously you got to go back there. Not that there's anything wrong with going back to South Sudan, because it's a great country. But
the other thing, Oguma, I also must say is majority of South Sudanese came here as a stateless. We didn't. Majority of us came here as we didn't have countries that we identify to be citizens of. When you look at your visa, the reason why you got that visa is called treaty voyage is because it's just a travel document. You have no country that you came from. You're stateless. So legally you cannot be deported anywhere. You will remain in detention unless you choose to say, I come from South Sudan. But you will be detained indefinitely. If it means until you die.
Well, I think we'll just wrap it up from there. But what can you tell people who are watching at the moment. Just to close it off, what is your last opinion about this problem? And just to give us your ending.
I mean, the only thing that I could say, especially for the young people, is, you know, within our community, you know, we have leaders that are doing good, like my brother Makir. We need people that can advocate, you know, young people, because one of the things that I see in our community is once you are, you know, involved in criminal activities, within our community we try to neglect these young people. You know, we bring them as, you know, criminals. You know, you see your young kid hanging out with someone, you tell them, do not hang out with this, he's a criminal. But we need to understand, as long as you are out, you know, you are not a criminal, right? And we cannot judge these kids, you know, by such thing, because it can bring your, it can give you insecurities, and, you know, this can, you know, mess with your, you know, mental being.
Mind.
So we need to be, you know, we need to advocate young people. We need to give them chances, you know, and tell them that you know, you still have a chance to do something with your life.
I think that's it from us. Thank you very much, you two, for coming. This is it from our end. We'll see you next time.